Welcome to the Sage Solutions podcast, where we talk about all things personal growth, personal development, and becoming your best self. My name is David Sage, and I'm a self-worth and confidence coach with Sage Coaching Solutions. So today, as in the day that I'm recording this, is December 30th. Yes, that's right. The day before New Year's Eve and 2 days before New Year's Day, which is a big part of what I wanted to make this podcast's topic about: reflections, intentions, and New Year's resolutions. As this year draws to a close, it's natural to start thinking about what you want to achieve in the next 12 months. But before we rush into goal setting, we need to take a moment to reflect. This episode will explore why reflection is so critical to setting meaningful resolutions and how intentions can shape your success. Plus, we'll take a look at some common pitfalls many of us fall into when making New Year's resolutions and how we can avoid them. So stick around and let's make sure you're setting yourself up for a successful year ahead. Before we get into it, our goal with this podcast is to share free, helpful tools with you and anyone you know who is looking to improve their life. So take action, subscribe, and share this podcast with them. Okay, if we're being totally transparent here, I have not been a very big fan of New Year's resolutions, which sounds kind of crazy given what field I'm in. And then I am all about personal growth and development through learning and changing and trying things and iterating to become your best self. After doing a bunch of self-reflection, I have changed my views on this, but it's because I gave myself additional information and reevaluated the approach that I was taking given the information. And frankly, I don't totally blame myself for feeling the way that I did. The sad but simple truth is that most New Year's resolutions don't work. 23% of people who make a New Year's resolution give up on that resolution by the end of the first week of January. 43% give up by the end of January. And a whopping 80% of people who make a New Year's resolution give up by the end of the second week of February. 92% of people do not follow through on their New Year's resolutions. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this. Doesn't mean that New Year's resolutions are inherently broken. No. Is that the conclusion that I came to and stuck with for probably too long? Yes. When I dug deeper into it, it became pretty clear that there were major fixable reasons why this is. And we will go over all of the factors that cause people to not succeed in their New Year's resolutions so that you have a much, much higher chance of succeeding. As rough as those statistics paint the picture to be, 100% of people who don't make a New Year's resolution don't achieve a New Year's resolution. That's right. If you don't have a New Year's resolution, if you don't change a behavior, if you don't attempt something new in the new year, you have a 100% chance of not achieving it, which is much worse than any of those other numbers. And I think that the biggest reason that people don't achieve their New Year's resolutions, other than crazy, unrealistic expectations, is because you have to know where you're coming from to get to where you want to go. So after looking through all of the data, and combining it with several different concepts that we've already talked about, and listening to the experiences of people in my life who have had successful New Year's resolutions, as well as learning from and being really impressed with the approach that Mel Robbins takes towards the end of the year and making resolutions in the new one, it is culminated in the approach that I am about to share with you. So this is just me sharing everything that I can give you to increase your chances of success. If you remember during the episode on navigating big life changes, I talked about this road trip metaphor that Mel likes to use. But I think it's almost even more applicable here. If you're going to plot a course on your GPS in a car, No matter what the GPS app you have is, if you don't give it a location to start from, if you don't know where you are, it won't tell you where to go. First, before we make any resolutions, before we make any plans, we have to stop, pull over, and figure out where we are. And we just went through a whole year, a year that we are forgetting tons of things about. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the grateful. And this is why it's so important to reflect and figure out where we are. As the year ends, we often rush forward to plan for the new year without fully processing the one that's about to end. But reflection is the key to meaningful growth. Reflection isn't just about looking back. It's about understanding what worked, what didn't, and why. Reflecting on the past year can provide insight into our patterns, habits, and priorities, helping us make more intentional choices in the year ahead. Reflecting on the past year helps us identify what's truly important to us. It helps us set resolutions that can be aligned with our core values and desires, not just fleeting trends or societal pressures. A study published in Psychological Science found that people who reflect on their past experiences, successes, and setbacks are more likely to set goals that are realistic and aligned with their long-term vision. We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. A quote by John Dewey. So what's the best way to do this? Do we just think back on one or two different things? I've found that the best way to get information is to ask good questions. Now, Mel Robbins talks about 7 questions that her and her family ask themselves with each other every year that help them reflect on the year that has passed and set their intentions for the year that is to come. My mom and stepfather do a similar variation of reflecting on the past year and setting some intentions for the future. Theirs is a little more based off of an exercise that they found years ago from Chip and Joanna Gaines, and my sister and her significant other are doing it every year as well. These questions may be a little less targeted, but can be very fun to answer and make for a great way to reminisce on the year. I'm going to start with those 7 questions because I thought they were incredibly powerful, targeted questions, and we'll throw in a couple other ones that you may like along the way. The first question that Mel asks is, what were the highlights of this year? Don't just think back and try and answer it very quickly. The best way to do this is if you can talk it out with somebody else, but of course that's not always feasible. So my advice would be to try and think back and think through each month one at a time. Another great way to really round up and remind yourself of all of the different things is to go through your camera roll and look at the different pictures of things and highlights that have happened throughout the year. You can ask a friend or family member to remind you of a number of different things because they might remember things that you're forgetting about. And you can also go through your calendar and look at the different events that you had planned throughout the year. Do your due diligence. Write down or think about all of the different highlights and high points that have happened throughout the year. A couple highlights for me have been doubling down on my own personal development this year and getting back into the rhythm of doing it at a rate beyond what I've ever done before. Another highlight for me was celebrating my first anniversary with my wife Hannah and going on a cruise in the Mediterranean with my family. I really enjoyed reconnecting with my old friend from high school, Andy. It's been really fun for Hannah and I getting to know Andy and his wife Kate, and we had a blast at their wedding. And I would say one of the biggest highlights for me for sure has got to be committing to and launching this podcast, as well as sticking to it even when it's not the easiest. Because as long as there's someone out there that this podcast is helping, then this entire experience has been worth it. So take a second and reflect back. Do this exercise. Give yourself permission to revel in and enjoy your favorite parts of this year. It's almost like you get to do them twice. Some great follow-up questions would be using mindfulness, inspired by the practice that my mom and sister use to reflect on the past. What are some of the things that you are most grateful for in your life? What were some of your favorite sounds, smells, and tastes of the year? And when did I feel the most present? These questions help you take a more mindful approach and remind you to stay in the present. The second question that Mel asks is, what were the hardest parts of the year for you? While this podcast was very rewarding, learning how to become a podcaster and all of the logistics weren't necessarily easy, and there were weeks where this was hard. But I would say that some of the hardest things for me this year were hearing about the loss of my mom and John's animals, their dog Fowler and their cat Abby. Just recently, my Aunt Sean passed away. And I think the hardest thing for me this year was finding out about my stepfather John's cancer diagnosis and seeing the pain and the struggle that he's had to endure throughout this entire process, as well as how hard it's been on my mom with all of these accumulated losses and setbacks. But they're both two of the strongest people that I know. And I'm just lucky to have them in my life. I also know that this year my exercise routine has been spotty at best. And I just didn't make it enough of a priority. So ask yourself and acknowledge what your struggles were. Because the goal of this exercise isn't just all sunshine and roses. We have to find the shades of gray so that we can paint an accurate picture of the year. The third question that she asks is, what did you learn about yourself over the last 12 months? This is a powerful way to self-reflect. Don't BS yourself here. This is for you. Try and take any and all ego out of it. Try and be as objective and honest with yourself here. Not mean. We can use some self-compassion, but just be honest with yourself. What did we learn, both good and bad? I learned a lot about discipline and grit this year. And I learned that I wasn't implementing them enough in my own life. I learned that I enjoy doing hard things. Not all the time, but I like the accomplishment of it. I learned a lot about philosophy, which is a topic that I hadn't really delved into until this year. I learned that I could successfully launch and sustain a podcast, and that I do truly love giving back and adding value to others. I learned a lot about grief and overwhelm in ways that and on scales that I hadn't had to deal with them before. I learned how important it was for me to step up and be there for the important people in my life. And that family is so important to me. And somewhat paradoxically, I learned so much as far as personal growth and development this year, but realized how much more I still don't know. Take some time and do some self-reflecting. This helps you develop self-awareness and understand where you're really at. One really great way to do this is to go through and take a baseline of where each of your 6 human needs are at, how well you feel that they're being met, and how you can meet them in better ways with different vehicles. Now that we've asked ourselves some really good questions to try and understand exactly where we are and what has all happened in this past year by doing some really good targeted reflections, we can start to look forward and set some intentions. Let's talk about the difference between resolutions and intentions, though. Most New Year's resolutions are focused on achieving specific outcomes: losing weight, getting a promotion, or quitting a bad habit. But intentions are a little different. Intentions are broader and focused on the mindset or process behind achieving a goal, rather than just aiming for a result. Setting intentions invites you to focus on who you want to become in the process. It's about aligning your actions with your values. Resolutions often come with unrealistic expectations, and as we talked about in the last episode about expectations don't leave a lot of room or flexibility and can set you up for disappointment, especially when they're not based on what you really want, but what others want. These types of expectations often don't have strong whys or motivations behind them, which means you're just setting yourself up for failure to try and please other people. This is why intentions matter more than resolutions. Resolutions often have a rigid focus on the outcome, which can be discouraging if you don't see immediate progress. Intentions, on the other hand, focus on cultivating habits and mindsets that support long-term success. Intentions are often about progress, not perfection. This helps avoid the trap of all or nothing thinking, also known as the binary bias, which we combat by thinking in shades of gray. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. A quote by James Clear, the author of the best-selling book Atomic Habits. While New Year's resolutions can be exciting, they come with their fair share of challenges. Many people start strong in January, only to give up by February, as we talked about before. Why does this happen, though? Let's dive into some of these common pitfalls. The first and most common one is setting unrealistic goals. Many people set goals that are too ambitious, like losing 50 pounds in 2 months, or working out every single day. When these goals are too extreme, it's easy to burn out, and they don't allow any flexibility. The second one is a lack of specificity. General goals like be healthier or save money are way on the other side. They're too vague. Without clarity and a specific action plan, it's hard to track progress and to stay motivated. These goals are so vague that it's hard to even know if you're accomplishing them. The third one is focusing way too much on using your own willpower and trying to white-knuckle yourself to success. The problem with relying solely on willpower is that it's finite. Everyone only has so much willpower. It's a psychological principle. We can't depend on sheer determination to reach long-term goals. It's about building discipline and habits and stringing those habits together in routines to make that goal easier to achieve. And like we touched on before, the last one is all or nothing, black and white thinking. This mindset says that if you don't perfectly follow through, then you failed. And you might as well just not even try or give up. The truth is that progress is rarely linear. Small setbacks are a part of the process, not a good reason to quit. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that the primary reason that 80% of people abandon their New Year's resolutions in February was setting unrealistic goals and a lack of accountability. If you're going to set a New Year's resolution, break it down into small, manageable steps, and be kind to yourself if you encounter setbacks. Remember, perfection is not the goal, progress is. Now that we have a better understanding of what makes our intentions for the new year and the goals that we set around them work, why don't we ask ourselves a couple more targeted questions? Now, I'm going to save these next 4 questions and do them together with Hannah later. The fourth question that Mel asks is, what are you going to stop doing in the coming year? Now that we know where we are, and we're being realistic about what we've learned about ourselves, we can try and set realistic intentions and goals surrounding those intentions to take any bad habits that we want to get rid of and make that a priority in the new year. Establish for yourself any things that you're going to stop doing in the coming year. What things would you like to subtract from your life? We start here because a lot of times subtracting things from your life, not just bad habits, but things that are putting too much on your plate, can leave room for the things that you want to start doing. And while it may be tempting to go nuts with this and have a bunch of things for each of these intention questions, keep it simple. We don't need to be perfect here. Perfection is the enemy of action, and complexity is the enemy of execution. Just commit yourself to taking imperfect action. Action equals success. Outcomes equal learning. Just pick one or two things here. We're not trying to overwhelm ourselves. And once you pick those things, you then need to break it down into small, simple steps. The fifth question she asks is, what are you going to start doing in the coming year? This is just the flip side of the past question. Now that we've taken a couple things off of our plate, what things do we want to put on our plate? What things do we want to start doing? Not because other people say that we should. We are being realistic with ourselves and thinking about what we've learned about ourselves. We're setting intentions that are achievable and something that we actually want. Because if we're going to do this, it needs to be something that we want for ourselves in order to fuel our motivation, in order to start with why. The sixth question is, what are you going to continue doing in the new year? What are the things that you reflected on, the best parts, the good habits that you've already built, the things you want to continue or improve on even further? Make a list of these things and make sure to give yourself credit for what you've done so far. And then finally, we get into the action question, my favorite. What can you do today to take the first steps in that set of directions? Now that we've set some intentions and we have important things that we want to strive for, we know where we are, so we need to know where we're trying to go. And in order to do that, we need to set a goal. And the model that I use for helping my clients set goals and achieve them is the SMART goals model. Make sure that your goal is SMART, S-M-A-R-T. The goal needs to be S, specific. It also needs to be M, measurable. It needs to be A, achievable. It should also be R, relevant to you and your life. And finally, it needs to be T, time-bound. We need to make sure that it's specific, that we can measure it, that it is realistic and achievable, that it's relevant to what we actually want, and then we need to hold ourselves accountable by setting some time frames. Then we build a roadmap. We start that GPS up. A GPS only gives you directions one direction at a time. Start small and be specific. Instead of saying, I want to exercise more, say, I want to walk 30 minutes, 3 times a week. But give yourself the flexibility, if you only have 10 minutes, instead of not doing it, to do 10 minutes. Small, specific actions are easier to integrate into your routine. Track your progress. Use journals and apps to keep track of your habits and progress. Tracking helps you stay accountable. Find a support system. Whether it's a friend, a mentor, or a community, accountability partners increase your chances of success. And celebrate the small wins. Acknowledge your achievements along the way to stay motivated. Practice is the purpose. So we're going to plan this in small, easy, simple steps. And we're going to make these very realistic goals. Because really what we want to do is build that muscle of whatever skill it is. We are trying to build a habit, even if it's a small or tiny or atomic habit. Because once you have the habit, you can expand it much, much easier. The average time that it takes to form a habit is 60 days of doing the action. That's how we form that muscle memory that creates the habit, since life is like a muscle. So build it. And one important thing to remember about habits is that they are not all or nothing. They are not black and white. The only way that you fail is to give up. Every time that you win a battle, you are making progress towards the war. Habits are a war. They're a war of percentages. If you are winning the mass majority of the time, you are not throwing it all away if you miss one day. Does it make it harder if you miss a day? Yes. Is it much easier to miss 2 days if you missed 1 day? Yes. But remember, get back on the horse. You do not lose all of the progress. You still have built some of that muscle memory. Do not give up. You don't have to win every battle. Perfection is the enemy of action. Consistency is king, but perseverance is power. If you get off track, pull over, and just like a GPS, recalculate. New simple steps. Keep going. You only lose if you give up. If you never give up, you will not be in that statistic. You may not have achieved it yet, but you are still moving forward. You've got this. Start with why, and remind yourself why you're doing this. Reduce the friction. Take all of the things that are going to make this harder to do out of the way. And if you do screw up, don't shame yourself. We know that shame is a terrible long-term motivator. Give yourself some self-compassion. So to wrap up, setting meaningful New Year's resolutions requires reflection on the past year, setting clear intentions, asking yourself good questions, and being mindful of the common mistakes like unrealistic expectations and black and white thinking. If you approach the new year with a mindset of growth, patience, and intention, you'll set yourself up for lasting success. Remember that goals, SMART goals, are not just what you achieve, but about who you become in the progress. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Lao Tzu. I believe in you. I know you can do this. Remember, you are enough, and you deserve to fill up your inner cup with happiness, confidence, and self-compassion. Thank you for listening to the Sage Solutions podcast. Your time is valuable, and I'm so glad you choose to learn and grow here with me. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more sage advice. One last thing, the legal language. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. No coaching-client relationship is formed. It is not intended as a substitute for the personalized advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional.